three types right there really, collapse and break down after every exposure to water. It really needs to be spelled out for the inspector as well as for the people that are trying to comply with the requirements of the agency.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Put it right out.
For example,
Right out.
MDF,
Melamine, MDF, OSB, those are the three words that need to be there. MDF,
MDF,
multi-density fiberboard, melamine, and OSB.
and that needs to be placed in there that those are acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Those are not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Those are not acceptable.
Half-inch plywood that's covered is better. I mean, it says it there, it's just a point of clarity.
Okay,
But if you don't say it, people are gonna push it and do it.
okay. All right, good. Very good, thank you. All right, we're moving on. Come on. Yes, sir.
Do we need to make that pressure treated plywood?
Well, I think that treated to be impervious to moisture kind of implies pressure treated or other type of sealant. Because I mean, you can use water sealant on non-pressure treated and it's perfectly sufficient to keep water.
Okay, all right.
Pressure treated or something.
Yeah,
that's true.
Have poison in it. So, okay, let's keep going. We're doing good. Let's go.
the danger venomous reptiles, based on my reading of this,
You gotta
it
have
is at
every
every
entrance.
entry point, and if y'all remember
This
last time we discussed, like at university settings, we have no exterior signs that say this is an animal facility due to the large animal rights activists and things like that. So we put those signs on an internal door, not on an external, and based on that, it says every entrance. No, that's an entrance, so,
That's why the double door system.
so you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So at UF down in Daly, their one of their buildings that has the conditional reptiles does have a sign on the external door that's exposed to people. You drive up, boom, 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 and it says they're dangerous reptiles. So they do actually have that.
Okay, so I would show it.
We're not saying that that's a good thing. We're saying that it presents a liability for universities
Yeah, our
and for
university
private.
is not
Well,
allowed.
not-
Yeah, we wouldn't be
UF.
allowed to do that.
I've had pitchforks.
You would say that again?
I mean,
it's not the same thing.
Let's say this has come up, yeah, I mean, we want to keep that low key.
Okay.
If the building, if the building itself
He has.
is the containment for the animal, then the outside doors would have to be. If you have a lab that you walk into the building, then you into the lab can be posted.
Okay.
But that's not what that says.
Yeah, we should change that language to say that it should say either.
Well, no, it says room or outbuilding. So the room has to be labeled.
At every point.
The room housing the venomous reptile.
It says such building, it should say such room or
Or
building.
building, yes.
If that's on there, we're good.
Okay,
Easy enough.
how do we fix that? You guys have that fixed?
Just add
Such
the room or building.
Okay, very good.
Easy.
You're good. Whew, let's move on. You guys are rocking. Let's do it. Keep
So,
going.
one other thing about the glass wall for the next paragraph.
Okay, all right, so
Sorry.
this portion that's talking about the glass wall in the next paragraph, I think it's really, you don't see this as much in private keepers as much you're gonna see in zoos. I mean, you go to, yeah,
The next
you-
one down?
if you go to Gatorland, for example, I don't think any of them are actually the ones that we list as tier 1 species, but their enclosures that they have, one of the walls that shows to the exterior is glass where people can come up and look at it from outdoors. I'm sure there's other examples from zoos here in Florida, and that would require a complete overhaul of a lot of zoos exhibits to meet that requirement, when I don't really see it as an issue, having a glass window as one of the walls.
Is there a reason for this? Why is it in? Is
Because
there?
you only have single containment for that wall.
Because you only have.
There's no secondary containment for that animal.
Your one wall serves as both primary and secondary containment, so you can use your secondary.
Okay,
That's true.
go ahead.
No, that was it, we discussed that thoroughly.
So does that?
Let me
What about double
add,
pane
Go ahead.
glass?
let me add to that. So, that is a trend in the business. The other thing is if we change the wording for the glass, right now you have 1/4 inch thick, tempered, break resistant glass. So break resistance, Captain and I talked about it, and I think you need to change that word to a laminated or safety glass, because standard tempered glass, if you hit it, it's gonna collapse. Yes, you've lost your containment. If it's a laminated safety glass, you can hit it, it may crack, break, but it will hold shape, and you are able to move the animals. So that is something, we're using with class ones all the time, and still that counts as contained. They are still contained, and we can move the animal to another area and then make it repairable.
All right, so this is a good suggestion. You got that captured? So laminated safety glass?
Now, we could look, just to add to this rule, we could look at doing insulated panes. So you could have your tempered lammy on one side and then a secondary piece on the other. Only one where that comes in is, say I want to do underwater viewing for water moccasin. That then becomes a little more difficult to set that up. But in a standard terrestrial arboreal case, you could do a double pane, so you still have laminated and safety. I would put that on the guest side, and then you're insulated, and then a secondary then for the animal side.
Can we add acrylic to this too? I think that a lot of zoos use
You could
acrylic.
use acrylic.
So laminated.
Because
Laminated
acrylic,
or
I mean,
safety or
that stuff
acrylic?
is,
Just take tempered out, that's it.
Insulated double
Right.
pane.
Would you
And then,
recommend that same standard for the tier 1 buildings that house tier 1 species? If they
Yes.
put a window,
Yes.
so they can't use standard construction windows, they have to meet what you just described?
Only if it's an outside wall.
Well, again, if,
of an enclosure.
so if the tier 1 building,
That's how it says.
That's just a tier 1, I build a concrete building in my backyard, it's gonna house a tier 1, I'm gonna have the safety entrance and all that other stuff, and the self-closing door. I'm gonna have good primary caging, but I wanna put windows in there for lighting. Would you recommend the same description of the window material for that building as we do for the exhibit?
not necessarily, because you could still do a welded wire screen
Yes.
on
I
the
think that-
interior of that, so that you could operate that window.
Or the outside.
So you would have to have something, which we've talked about several times, a screen, so you would have to have that. But if you didn't want to have it, then, yeah, you would need to go to an
So
impact window.
that's the hardware cloth you put the.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would
Bill?
put that up.
Sorry, I'm back just one paragraph.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
to be.
Are you doing the last?
Well, I'll get to that one, but I have one before that.
Who's next?
Last time we talked about, so in language where it says constructed of concrete block or equivalent material, we talked about replacing that with meeting hurricane requirements.
Or should it be
Is it?
local building standards?
Some kind of.
We actually talked
What we
about
said
Florida,
was county-
Florida county building code is actually what we asked permanent structure.
Is that for just tier 1s or?
That's tier
In this
1.
paragraph it is.
Or if it's an outbuilding for tier 2 and tier 3, I think it says it in there.
Or do we have that in there? Or is that something
Yeah,
that?
change concrete block.
No,
We
it's
need to
major.
change some language.
Yeah, you
never
never
got
got put in.
So they
Keep
use,
going with this conversation, but if we come to a stopping point, I'd like to see, we can do the public comment now, because there might be some people that are on that, they
I just have
anticipated
one
it
more
4 to
point.
4:30,
Yeah.
and to let,
Oh,
hear
it's 4
their,
to 4:30.
yeah, hear their comments.
Yeah.
But let's get to it, let's continue the
Yeah, let's
conversation, get
finish
it to
this
a
one and
stop
then we'll do
point,
the public
and
comment.
then we'll do the public comments, so some
Okay.
folks can.
So really, where I'm saying for tier 1, 2, or 3, your building needs to meet local building standards in the construction of that facility. So you could possibly take out the block and hurricane straps and those things, and just stated that it's got to meet local, because even for, take an outbuilding, for example, yes?
Well, first of all the counties can be different, so in some counties, they might not have any requirements. And FWC is not in the business of enforcing building code ordinances.
Yeah, but you're in here telling us what type of materials we have to use
Right,
and
but we're
engineering
familiar
and...
with those, there are requirements, and that's why we want to put our requirements in, rather than saying, oh, what's the requirement for this county versus that county versus this county? It's gonna be different for everybody, and it might not be what we want.
Well, you could use the Florida building code.
That's right, we actually talked about that in someone's actually cited and put into the notes what
Yeah.
the code was for the Florida building code for a permanent structure.
Yeah.
And that was put into the notes.
If you've got a specific
We don't want sheds,
requirement
but
that
we
we
talked
can put in
about
our
this.
rules, then that's great. I just not familiar with.
We already do.
Florida building
I agree
code.
with
Florida follows the Florida building code.
Yeah, we gave it last
And
time.
that is the standard for anything in Florida. And even to the point, if you go and buy a TED shed, it has to be engineered to meet that code, and they are required to anchor it in a certain way. So even those are now rated
Okay.
to like 140 mile an hour wind.
So there's a suggestion, let me get this right, there's a suggestion to eliminate the construction materials that we're suggesting and just go with Florida
Code.
code,
Building code.
Florida building code. Let's write that down.
It was amped up from
And
that.
we need to talk about, in B here, that last sentence that says, no part of such building. Well, first off,
Yeah, that's coming, everybody's got that.
Go ahead, Jody. Just keep
Everybody had that.
I mean, obviously, there's a mistake here with the wording on shall not be used as a residence. Or not,
Where is it? Tier
yeah,
one.
shall not be used as a
Read
residence.
that last sentence, Mike, you'll get it.
No part of such building shall not be used as a residence.
Come on, guys.
Let that sink in for a second.
It says you have to sleep with your snakes.
All right?
Come on, did y'all go to
So-
Florida?
So,
Easy.
with that being said, after all the biosecurity conversations that we've had today, about maybe having an additional safety door for tier 1 and everything, if we can get people to meet that, having 2 doors to get into the room, can we get to the point where we can scratch this residence portion? Because that, I mean, that's gonna knock a lot of people out that are in Florida, and I mean a lot. Investigators, you can tell me how many people's houses do you go to that keep them in their personal houses? You know, including myself, I keep an escape-proof room inside my home that I do keep venomous, and that's a lot of venomous keepers here in Florida.
Now, it's just noted for tier 1.
What's that?
It's just noted for tier 1.
I know it's only for
If-
tier
if
1.
that stays.
I don't think it should apply to any tier though, as long as the room itself has been designed to be escape-proof and there's a double door to get into it, I don't see any issue with keeping that inside
Okay,
there.
we discussed that a little bit earlier too, right?
Mhm.
Let me,
One tiger in my house.
yes.
Just to clarify, when I started this mess,
Back to the concrete block thing.
we did have a conversation last time. It wasn't, I don't think it was just building code. There was another step to say it was hurricane proof or met some hurricane code or something is what we discussed at the last meeting.
We actually looked at some of the language,
No, you're good.
we looked at some of the language for that, and when we actually started reading it, there is no way for our investigators to really enforce that. I mean, it was very specific, like, must be this width and this material.
It went into the engineering terms of the concrete blocks that you're able to use.
And that's just more than we're gonna want to enforce.
So could we say something as simple as any building so used must be approved by the commission prior to?
We do have that.
I mean, one of the things we talked about was permanent structure. Permanent structure, right? So it is on a concrete slab.
Yes.
You know, I mean, one of the issues you had was, you know, these people who have tin sheds who were up on blocks and, you know, what for tier 1 was one of your concerns, which is why we went to the permanent structure.
The only one that's a concrete wall is.
Yeah, but they're anchored to the ground.
We did
They're
initially say it, but
for an insurance
later we
purpose.
said, well, maybe that may not be feasible, and it was discussed and we talked about permanent structure. So I don't know if maybe it just never got crossed out on it, but we all decided that that probably wouldn't be feasible. Because
Right.
even some, you know, some facilities or, you know, warehouses may not even be, you know, cinder block. You might have something that's wood frame that's done there, but it's perfectly capable of containing the.
And now that we got talking about the steel structures that are actually rated higher in the concrete block, but so that's why we went away from the concrete block and went with permanent structure. Yeah, and then we went to Florida code because we thought that that was better, but if you look at it, and it's all crazy.
It was too much. I think it's real long now.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Let's go ahead with the public comment. Oh, go ahead.
Want me to say, well, we're gonna have a problem where some facilities right now that have these animals are not concrete block, but they're definitely hurricane proof. What are we gonna do about those facilities? they're gonna be asked to spend tens of thousands of dollars to build a whole new building to keep the animals that are currently in a hurricane-resistant or proof building? Am I, are you?
Well, he said the Ted shed may need a permanent structure because the way it's,
It'll really depend on the
strapped
age
down.
of the structure.
He didn't say permanent structure, he said hurricane proof. There's a difference. One, you can have a non-permanent structure that's hurricane rated,
Right.
right? It doesn't make it a permanent structure.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so
It's
then,
just because it's anchored to the ground, it can be unanchored and moved.
right.
So in
So how do we
tier
fix
one, the
that?
Ted sheds would be no good.
No.
And I think everyone agrees that we don't think sheds should be all right for tier one.
But if someone has a super nice, I don't know what you call them down here in Florida, I'm from the Midwest, but pole building, I mean, it's secured, it's
Right.
built around
Pole barn.
timbers, pole barn, I mean, that thing's gonna be more than hurricane proof, but it doesn't have concrete block walls. I mean, that's rare, for,
And
I mean,
expensive.
the concrete block wall is an expensive building, a lot of materials are more, they're sturdier, and they're not made out of concrete block. And even though it says or equivalent material, I don't know if you're saying it has to be concrete block or, some sort of brick.
Concrete or better. I mean, it has to be something.
As long as you're okay, that's what I'm asking is if or equivalent material may even mean a secure pole building, if that's gonna qualify.
My house is a permanent structure and has OSP board for the roof. Shingles, but it has OSP board for the roof. So I think you may be right, the concrete block might be a too high a standard.
okay, so then how do we fix that really quick before
Well,
we
I'm asking how
vote?
they're gonna enforce or
Hurricane proof.
equivalent material.
Or equivalent material, I guess is the question.
Or
Is
like
a
this,
pole
that's
barn
fine, or better.
or better?
I mean, right now, you put the onus on the applicant to show that what you have is equal to or better than what's in the code. I mean, that's already there, we already do that.
I don't think you've got a satisfactory answer yet.
They don't have.
And maybe,
Because a lot of materials are gonna be less strong than concrete block, but they're gonna be more hurricane proof.
It doesn't say hurricane proof, it says concrete block or.
Well, yeah, but for our purposes,
correct.
we're trying to prevent escape, and a hurricane is what's
Or
gonna cause an
concrete
escape.
would work.
What would you suggest?
Well, I was asking how they were gonna interpret equivalent material, if they're gonna be lenient and say, the pole building, that, a permanent structure is okay, then we don't really have a problem, but I don't want someone getting nagged who currently, I know there are current facilities in Florida who have permanent buildings, but they're not gonna be concrete block or
Without
equivalent.
knowing what specific material you're talking about, just say.
Well, I gave an
pole building,
example of a
but
pole
I'm saying,
building. I mean,
just telling you,
Well,
pole
but
building
we-
is-
Metal sheeting.
metal sheet, because that's what I did, I
Pole
wasn't sure
building is
either.
made out of, yeah.
And again, I think a lot of that's gonna go by the age, and then unfortunately, there is a loophole here. If you're agriculturally zoned and you put a pole barn up, a lot of times you don't have to have a permit. So you don't have to be engineered. My case, I have to have all my buildings engineered, so I could give you engineered drawings for a pole barn that says this meets Florida code and the wind load.
And we could look up property appraiser and actually see that building on the appraiser's list, right?
Yes.
If it's permanent,
If it's permanent. Now, the one is if you live agricultural, a lot of times you don't have to have a permit, you can do what you want in an ag situation,
To build a pole barn.
to build a pole barn. Or outbuildings.
There's a lot of AZA zoos that don't fit that block building requirement.
to
Alright,
answer
we're
this question,
Yeah,
the pole barn would not work if we stayed with the concrete block, to answer your question.
No, that's.
We're asking.
And that's the
for
problem,
back
because
down.
we got away from it last time for this reason.
We had verbiage last time, but it's good law apparently. And I don't have it written down, but somewhere last time it was written down, and we all agreed upon it.
can we revisit that, the verbiage that they came up with the last go around?
Yeah, but I think they're going off of something else. I think we had additional language besides just.
And-
Go ahead.
We still haven't gotten back to the residence portion. All right,
Yeah.
this is really important. I haven't really gotten an answer about how you guys feel about this. The major mentioned something about he might feel better about him being in a residence if there was that our safety door that was there going in, so a double door. If we get residences to have a double door, do you think we can have this language? I mean, obviously, I know you can't speak for the whole commission, but I highly recommend doing that if that's gonna have to be the concession folks are gonna have to make. I think people would rather buy a storm door and put some more drywall in their house than have to build a whole separate facility, out back, spend probably $40,000.
You have to do public.
Yeah, I'm gonna, okay, so I need to shut us down, we need to table this for just a minute, let's do the public comments, and then we'll pick it back up, because you guys sitting at the table, you guys can hang out, I could pay by this salary, so, I don't wanna go past 5, but half the time I'm donating time, so it's okay. I definitely wanna get the public comment really quick, and my phone has died, which is why I'm really off on my time, but somebody needs to be a timekeeper for the public comment stuff. You got it?
We got 3 minutes?
All right, so let me go with the first row. You want to go first?
Sure.
All right,
Can we have
Oh.
30 seconds? We're trying to get straight over here, straight.
30 seconds, just give them 30 seconds, they're still typing up some notes.
I guess starting now.
Yeah, I'm gonna count you down.
Yeah, you just do it.
Me and my family, we're all learning how to sail right now, and we have these flags, like 5 minutes, and then 1 minute, and 30 seconds. That's what I need flags. Yeah.
All right, we're ready.
Can you put public comment across the top for some of the stuff? Are you good? All right, let's go.
Okay, yeah, my name is Ed Casano, and I got my first VR license, I guess, around 68 or 69, and I've been keeping venomous reptiles ever since then. I'm one of the guys that, I'm not commercial, I don't sell any of my snakes, I'm a private keeper, I do it for the love of the animals. And there's people in this room can tell you that when I have bred my animals, I've given them away. I'd like to back up of 3 minutes. I gotta hit things real quick. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just very passionate about this. All this is not even necessary as far as I'm concerned. We've had 2 escapes. Our record is stellar here in the state of Florida. Nobody's ever been hurt or bitten by an escaped exotic snake. We put more injuries have to occur to put a red light at an intersection than for all this. So with that aside, I just don't think any of this is necessary. We have very good rules and laws in place right now. To go through some of the stuff today, pit tagging. There's so much talk about pit tags fall out, they do this percentage is good, that percentage is good. A snake's pattern is good for the life of that snake. You don't need any more than that. You take a picture, the picture's no good, you tell that person, hey, you're not in compliance, I'm writing you up, you give me good pictures. Just like if the person didn't have a pit tag, you'd make him pit tag, you make him get a good picture. There's very few snakes that are unicolored like that, you can scale clip them, or if you have to, mandate that those be pit tagged. But let's not do pit tagging of all these snakes and then just all the injury to the snakes and the people, it's ridiculous to do that. Uncontainment. I'm the guy that's handling these things all the time. I'm the guy that's got hands-on all the time. They're in my house. I live with them. Hundreds of times a month I'm handling these snakes. I've had them on the floor. I've had them running around the room. They've never gotten out of the room even that I've been in. I've been through some very serious snake bites. Every single time that snake is back in the cage, never out of the room before anything else is done. Secondary containment is great. Cage is locked, the room locked. I don't really think we need a secondary swinging door and everything to go through. If you're going to forget one door, you can forget 2 doors. As far as the tier system goes, I don't think there should be any ban on that at all. You've already got the right idea. If an intern comes in, let them go ahead and progress up through the tier, getting their experience before they can keep a tier 1 snake. Leave it at that. On grandfathering the people that have snakes now, the species are going to be grandfathered, and I don't know what the containment requirements are going to end up being, but if they're so strict that we can't keep the snakes that are grandfathered, that's the same as a ban.
Your minutes, sir.
Okay, and the one other thing, just real quick, the reason we need to keep our snakes, or the reason for needing to keep the snakes, it's called freedom. We have freedom to do what we love. And that shouldn't be taken away just because somebody else doesn't think we need to do it. I'm sorry.
You're all right, thank you.
Good job.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to go on a plan out that if everyone goes over 3 minutes, we're not going to have time to get to everybody, we'll only have 30 minutes for this.
Okay.
So if we can keep it 3
We're-
minutes.
Next person.
Yep, next person in the front row, anybody in the front row? You? No? Second row, going down? Yes, sir. State your name.
Greg Graziani, I run Graziani Reptiles. The one thing that I've gone and met with the commissioners, spoke at the commission meetings, and you myself and Kurt had actually met with commissioners and talked to them about what they wanted. The two biggest things that they said was biosecurity and increased penalties. The tier system itself, I think it's proving itself to be problematic. It's going to be extremely problematic to enforce. The simpler we can keep things, both on the enforcement side and on the keeper side, is going to be the easiest way to do it on both ends. What I don't understand is why there is a need or a want to prohibit certain individuals from keeping certain species. You either meet the criteria or you don't. I don't care if you're Disney or you're Joe Blow. You either have the experience and the training that's required, and you have the acceptable facility, or you don't. But whether I keep it because I want to, or I keep it because I make money doing it, doesn't change the safety factor or my skill level or anything else. So that, I don't understand where the idea is that AZA zoos can have something, but a private citizen shouldn't have that. If he meets the requirements, he meets the requirements. And if your agency is going to say, well, we don't want that many people to meet the requirements because it's too much work for us. That's not what the agency was put here to do. It was put here to serve us. So whether I'm a vet or a private citizen, if I meet the criteria, and I know you've already got precedent with the Class 1 wildlife. If you're not commercial, you can't have a lion. I don't agree with that, and I don't want to see that snowballing down into this, and that's what happens in what we do. When we put some of these regulations into effect, they start to snowball. I'm already seeing it with the special concern in ROCs now snowballing into the venomous because of the Burmese pythons and the Everglades. And now we're saying, what if, what if, what if, what if? And we can what if ourselves to death. But the idea here is, I think we've really put the cart before the horse, like you said before. We were working on a curriculum to get an industry standard. We don't have an industry standard. And that's what we're trying to do with the curriculum, is put an industry standard so that you guys know this is the safe way to handle, manipulate, and maneuver with these animals. And then you can start to see which animals fall in certain criteria. But right now, we're just throwing stuff out there. And we're saying, well, just because you're a private citizen, it's not commercial, you shouldn't have this. When you may meet all of the criteria and be able to have the training and have everything that Disney or any other zoo has. You know.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
My name is Mark Robertson with Biocon Labs in Gainesville. I've worked with the majority of this group through this endeavor. I've been a venomous reptile keeper for 40 years. My job is to go around the world. We work with zoos and research facilities and work with biosecurity and animal systems and such. And after the Jupiter meeting, I took it upon myself to contact the game commissions from Virginia all the way around to California. And without exception, Florida stands alone in the amount of legislation that's been laid upon us to take care of and deal with these animals. Actually, I venture to say, after reading everything that I've seen from the other states, you could take everything from these 15 states I've looked at, and it doesn't even come close to what I've seen here. No other state has anything other than a fundamental hunting license if you want to work with native species of venomous reptiles. And we've had such a good system for such a long time. We've had a few bad actors that have created problems for us. And part of that comes from the vagueness in the system. Almost to a person, everybody who's been working on this has said the same thing. We have concerns about biocontainment. We should have probably spent 80% of this meeting talking about secondary and primary containment. With that, there's no tier, there's none of this other stuff. We're adding more and more and more stuff for our inspectors to be responsible for. And it's more record keeping that is probably just going to go into a file cabinet someplace. So we have to ask ourselves, do we want to logically come up with an answer to the problem, or do we want to emotionally answer something that's been put upon us by people who are just not very familiar? So are we scientists? Are we politicians? And that's probably part of the problem. You're seeing the disconnect between the people who work with the animals and the people who are asking why we do this. That would be it.
Yes, sir. My name's excuse me. My name's Rick Boshin, Venomous permit holder here in Florida for 32 years. I echo much of the same sentiment I heard from Ed and Greg and the previous person regarding the passion we feel for the animals, and I really, I know I've heard people say that this is a privilege, not a right. I personally feel keeping reptiles and keeping wildlife in general is a right, as long as the animals are cared for properly, and they're contained to allay the public's concerns, and with that, I think and I hope once the FWC staff leaves this meeting and as this percolates before they get to the commission meeting in September, I hope we can kind of refocus things that, all this talk about the tier system, and as others mentioned, it's really about containment. I mean, that's the crux of all this. If the animals are contained, and you take away the potential threat to the public, and the PR nightmares they create for you guys when the snake gets loose. And I'm sensitive to the needs of taking some action and letting the public know that FWC is actively addressing these issues. But the key is it's going to be containment. It's not this tier nonsense. It's not a lot of the other stuff we talked about. I mean, if people keep venomous snakes, they do so at their own risk. That's the onus is on that individual or the people within that household. Really, the only legitimate concern of the public and the government is the containment. And I hope if there's one thing that we can leave and focus on more is just that single issue and less on this tier stuff. So with that, I'm done.
Okay, thanks. The next row in the back, you guys? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Richard Sullivan. I've been doing it for 40 years with my license. The only question I have to ask is, I started out with pythons, used to breed about thousands of them, until I got out of it, went in strictly into venomous, and now I changed from different venomous to other ones. I've had about every venomous there is, mostly the mamas I did first, the rattlesnake, the boom snakes, everything. Now that I don't have a thing now, y'all telling me that if I don't have it now, I can't have it under my permit? Is that what y'all are saying? Because I had to drop everything because I'm going through a divorce, so I had to dump my whole collection. And I had thousands of venomous snakes, and I want to get back into it as soon as I get everything situated, and then I won't be able to get them back. Is that what I'm hearing? That's all I have to say.
So can we answer this question?
It's a public comment, it's not a
I'm sorry.
exchange question.
Very good. Okay.
So asking the questions out of the question.
So
It's a public comment.
Well, it's a public comment, but we may be able to ask that question.
Okay, I do have a question. Hope you guys can answer it for me later. My one concern, if it went the route of commercial, would be, let's say you have a difficult to breed species and you actually fail on reproducing any offspring to sell for the first couple of years. Are you losing your permit and therefore your animals because you did not successfully sell any offspring that year?
Okay.
How much of a leeway or time frame are we allowed on something like that?
Thank you.
Your name? What was your name?
Oh, Greg Kazuba.
Greg, what's his?
Currently not owning anything, but.
People were telling us
Greg.
what they were doing in the industry.
I was assistant director for a wildlife sanctuary dealing with large cats, primates, venomous animals for quite a few years.
Thank you.
Can you spell your last name?
Oh, good luck. No, I want you to spell it yourself.
I'm sorry.
Kaszuba.
I'm sorry, my business I had was Snake Man's House of Reptiles. I was a snake exhibit, is what I used to have.
Okay. That was everybody, and they, right? Is there anyone else? Okay. All right, do we want to pick it back up? 4:33, we got 20 minutes. Hey, listen, what I'm saying is the folks who need to leave at 5 can get on out, but, so let's try to do the best we can though, really quick. Where do we, let's pick I know there was a couple of comments over here, like, there was one more thing in here that's like, we need to talk about. There's something really heavy we could discuss in 20 minutes?
This section, I think we kind of did everything right here.
Okay.
We talked about
Talking about the viewing panel, floors,
The number one there, the floor, outdoor open top, concrete or masonry, only 2 inches thick, the side shall be, can we instead say at least 8 inches in thickness, say, of concrete or masonry construction, and not put the 8 inches there?
A1, 1A, or is that one?
Number 1.
Well, here's the 8 inches of thickness of A.
Also,
It
Oh, it is?
pops up a
Oh, here
couple
it is.
times.
Okay.
And what's your suggestion, John?
Is to either call it a concrete or masonry construction and just take the 8 inches out.
Yeah, because you can use a solid 4-inch block, it would be 5 times stronger than an 8/16.
Yeah, I know where you're going, right?
Um,
Okay,
Also, wait a minute, there's also a 4-foot height above floor of the enclosure. Just, I don't know how we word this, but if you were to use that as a exhibit piece, we would need to be able to do glass panels, because ADA, you can't view over 4 feet. So we're now violating those regulations. So again, it's really gonna apply to exhibits, but,
It's gonna be what, 88, 40 inches?
this is,
it's no, for
Which
viewing,
one
it's
was
more
it?
like 34. But if we could do, if you could have a 4-foot glass panel within that zone, and again, it could be tempered
I
laminated,
got Tony and
then you could still have viewing opportunities.
Well, it says it, or equivalent, the strength equivalent. The problem is, those words right there have always been a thorn on our side, because
It's a challenge.
it is a challenge, and there's no standard to prove it, and it is an absolute nightmare.
Trying to
Let me-
get somebody
Tony,
to engineer glass.
Now that we got the major back in here, we still never answered the question about the residence
Resident.
thing.
all right, hold on with the residents. We're gonna hold on to that for just a minute.
Okay.
We got it right there, but you had a question.
We still can do, for instances like that, we can still, for a facility, an exhibit, a zoo, we can still do a deviation.
The challenge is trying to get a deviation with glass to be the equivalent to concrete or masonry. You're not doing apples to apples, and most glass manufacturers will not provide you that data. Now, we've been able to get deviations, but we have to be creative in how we write them. So
I watched
if
a
there's a
giant
way-
Bengal tiger try to eat a kid in a raincoat, and he hit that glass, and I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yes.
Oh, I saw that.
I think that's a strength.
Does that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to keep going down, or we want to revisit this since the major's in the room? Go ahead, Tony.
I just want to ask, we talked about a little bit earlier, do you think that for tier 1 animals, if there is a safety door in addition to the door entrance to the room, that would be equivalent for keeping tier 1 animals that we can strike out that they shall not be kept in a residential building?
And I even want to qualify it beyond that, because maybe I'm the only one here that's not in favor of doing secondary doors for reptiles. I understand safety entrances for big cats, for primates, for animals that have the ability to shoot past you, but there is no snake out there, venomous or otherwise, that is a real danger for when you open the door, it's going to shoot out. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen in a world of possibilities, and I think you even said, what about the possibility when you talked about it, but we're talking about a considerable expense for people to try to put safety entrances or secondary doors on residential situations where
And for the separate whole thing.
To that same point, this was something that came up with my university facility. Our safety people wanted this sort of double entrance thing, and so they had these scenarios in their head where the snake would escape out of its cage and would coil up at the base of the door. We'd open the door, we'd get bit, we'd die. Right, and so this was going, but there were construction issues. We couldn't alter some of the buildings, and after months and months of going back and forth on this, we came up with the fairly simple solution of setting up a camera pointed at the door. Right, and so that before you enter the room, you can look on on your phone or whatever and say, okay, there's not a snake sitting at the base of this door when I open it, so it's going to be safe. And so that's a fix that's $50 tops, as opposed to constructing a new door or even probably adding a store.
We could say either or.
Yeah, so that
you say
if we could have options.
door
maybe.
or camera.
But if you're talking about two doors, a storm door and then a solid door, or a storm door and a glass door, you're not going to open that door, step in and close it behind you if they're right together, and then open the door. I mean, it's still.
No, he's saying you can see through it. He's saying that the secondary door, the storm door, whatever it is, you can view, right, and that's the discussion.
I'm not quite sure that this is getting to your question, right?
No.
Is there anything that's gonna make staff feel like it's okay to keep in residence?
Multi-units or like?
No, just like single family home, all right? My primary
This
residence.
is a tier one?
Tier one.
This is where that extra knot came in, right?
Yeah.
That question?
I'm asking, is there any wiggle room to get that out of there?
We'll make note and discuss it. I'll take it up my food chain
Okay.
and see what.
But is that sort of the opinion of the group, that that's something that you guys want them to discuss, right? Okay. All right, very good. Okay.
And to the point on the door, I kind of envisioned a prudent person, would open that first door and look, just do a brief cursory scan. Everything looks good. And then as they're opening that storm door, they're pulling that door behind them. I know there's no space in 4 inches. None of us can get in there in 4 inches, but I kind of envisioned that type of action. You open, you scan. All right, I'm good. As you're swinging that door open with that sweep, so if there is anything on the left-hand corner that you can't see, if it's a in-swing door, you're actually creating a barrier too, and you're pulling that other door behind you. And I can see that.
We've never had, all we've had in place up to this point in time have been securely locked cages, or in the alternative, a room that's locked, and the cages are inside that locked room and secure. So we've never had that, and so now what we're talking about and what we've told the majority of permit holders that we're communicating with is we got to go to secondary containment. It's going to be mandatory now. It has never been mandatory before. And so adding this additional wrinkle of essentially a safety entrance is just, it's, for some animals I can certainly understand it. Like I said, for the big mammals I can certainly understand it. For snakes, it's such a small, tiny risk that I just don't think it's reasonable.
Okay, I think we've noted that a couple of times now.
Does anybody else agree with me on this, or are you guys all okay with it?
Yeah, this is what I've had this argument with FSU, our health and safety forever. It's absurd to me, especially when you consider the case that most of these animals, their eating elements are in their cage. If they actually got on the floor, they're not going to be all right.
They're going to hang out.
Be cool
They're going to hang out
off,
where it
they're
heats
gonna
up.
hide. And
So can we require a chill plate on the concrete inside?
Ice water bearing or running.
Hey, what about one of those things when you go into the what's the name, Circle K, and you blows cold air straight down the door?
I love this.
It freezes anything at the door. All right, so let's move on. Do you have something specific to that, or I already got a recommendation to go to number 3 here?
Okay, go to number 3.
Okay.
Question number 3, why is that struck out? Not being able to do a mesh top outdoor enclosure?
Is it captured somewhere else?
I think they're trying to get people away from, that have like outdoor enclosures for king cobras that are basically just like 1/4 inch hardware cloth made of,
Yeah, it's, from an exhibitry standpoint, it's one of our advantages of being able to be in Florida to exhibit reptiles outside. While I don't know many that do venomous, just to have the option. I mean, we could tighten up how we write about the mesh, but, we have a lot more dangerous animals in mesh enclosures in Florida than venomous snakes.
You have to say someone that you can't have a mesh shop.
Well, they crossed this out, so
Well,
they,
you have to cross it out, but is there somewhere else where it says that you can't have it?
it says you
It
can only
says
do
only
open.
native.
You can do open for native. So I was just gonna ask if we could just keep that in there and have that option.
Okay, let's write that down. So there's a suggestion to keep 3 in there,
With whatever you want them.
not strike that.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it
Okay, what else? Keep moving, let's go. What's the next one?
I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
To me, it's, the next one is, if you have possessed tier 1 venomous, that you have to keep a list of contiguous landowners or neighbors.
Which one is that, sorry?
C all the way at the bottom. Straight.
Keep going down?
Yeah.
8C, okay.
So, I mean, for the university, our institution is 1,200 acres. And if I possess venomous, tier 1 animals, that's going to be thousands of neighbors that we would have to try to keep up with for me to carry out research. That's kind of a due penalty that you're putting on them. You see what I mean? So, I mean, literally, that would be thousands of contiguous landowners around that.
I mean, it's now facilitating.
You're trying to, I kind of see your goal, but I don't know if, I would say FSU's in the same exact boat.
We have it in the class 1 rule. There's a class 1 rule that,
Is it?
yeah, for those of us with a lot of acreage, it makes it difficult.
I beg your pardon.
A minimum property size, if you don't own at least 200 acres, you have to, or something of that nature.
How about 50?
How about that?
Is that regards to?
Yeah. 54. Okay. Well, that seems a bit arbitrary, but is that something you guys want to?
Should we define a radius?
That makes
around
sense.
The
Yeah,
actual.
what about a radius around the facility?
The point is, we have a chance to think it out, and we have to be commenting on all your neighbors.
You
You
need
need
to
to
be.
have that readily available. We shouldn't have to be trying to figure out who people
Right.
to let them know.
And that already happens, you said, with class 1s.
Yes.
But now what you're saying is, what they're suggesting is, could it be but actually what you suggested was, could a certain size?
I think we're compromised, but I
Yeah.
understand the point,
Yeah.
that's.
We could even do something like if you have quadruple containment, then it's not something, and I'm not trying to be a smart pants here, your room is inside 4 doors or 5 doors to get out, because animal facilities built at research institutions, that's how they are. You see what I'm trying to?
Yeah, I see what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, yeah,
Did you have a comment on that?
You could look at a radius or minimum acreage or something like that. Because that was something, the class 1 stuff they put on back burner, but that was something we were working on a day or two. Is when you got a lot of acres.
I got Tony and then Red.
I was just gonna say, I was a little confused, and there is some stuff before this we need to hit. What was meant about the entire width of a dedicated roadway shall be considered sharing a common boundary in instances of dedicated roadway between neighboring properties? Are you saying like if there's a road coming into someone's property, but they're not immediately in vicinity?
The street in front of you, if.
So the neighbor across the way? Okay, but not like the whole street coming in?
Only where your property goes along that street.
Okay,
And the street separating you from your across the street neighbor is just a fence,
okay,
essentially.
okay, that's fine.
Very good.
But we do need to back up a little
All
bit.
right, hold on, I got Rick first.
I'm gonna say that the contiguous neighbors, that's mentioned in, further up in the chapter, on the critical disaster plan what's required. But what's missing here, that's up in the other chapters, that the Part B required to be kept on your facility is also supposed to be made available if the emergency manager, director of the local emergency management wants to take a look at it.
Okay, so we need to add, you're saying, suggesting adding that to
I
this?
think it should mirror what we already have in the rule.
Okay, can you guys got that over there? All right. Tim?
Okay, under 10E, or I'm sorry, 10D, about the handling as defined of venomous reptiles outside, escape-proof rooms is prohibited except as authorized in writing by the commission prior to handling activity. That right there literally makes it illegal for me to walk out and handle an eastern diamondback in the wild. All right, that needs to be completely
Which one was that?
It's 10D, right? So
Handling.
there's another bullet in there that says free handling, but there's also a bullet that says handling, all right? So we need to make sure to address that, because I mean, most people, it's pretty common for folks to go out herping, you know, riding roads, looking for snakes and everything, or whether it be a research entity. And honestly, if I got a venomous permit, I'd rather not have to submit in writing every time I want to go out and do anything with eastern diamondbacks. I already have to submit a scientific collecting permit every time I go out. I already have my venomous permit, commercial license, all this stuff. I don't want to have another layer right there for them.
Okay.
What if we just said that you could do this only with native species?
I can see that being a potential.
Hold on, I got the captain, major, gosh, now I have voted, sorry, the major.
Today's all over.
You might be getting it.
Kristen already called me Rob, so I'm a civilian.
All right, go ahead, what's your comment?
That's fine. You know, we could maybe look at an exemption, you know, people with scientific permits, like Tony already said he had, you know, for collection, whatever, sent.
I think it
This shall not include persons with.
Hold on, I got Eugene.
It's not okay.
It has a solution.
It should just be
That's not okay. If I have a venomous reptile license, I can go collect the eastern diamondback and this rule.
Right, that's what it says.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Noted.
Yeah, they're talking about.
So you're discussing native,
Well, we'll talk about it, but
Is
okay,
can't
your
decision
goal,
right now.
okay.
Kara, is your goal, pardon my interruption, that I can't take my, whatever outside and play with it?
Yes,
That's your goal?
that's the goal.
Okay,
No ceasing.
moving on to Eugene.
I was encouraged by your comments, because personally, I want to note it here, we're the only state of the southern states, like Mark Robinson was talking about, and I read his report, it's pretty extensive. But this agency used to be a conservation agency. In my opinion, it's gone from conservation, left hunting, fishing a long time ago, becoming more and more of a preservation society. And it irks me to no end that when the old boy next to me is clear cutting 100 acres of pine trees, and those eastern diamondbacks are going across my property, I technically cannot pick up and move across Archer Road and put them on Mr. Long's property where he's got 500 acres of pine trees. If it's an indigenous venomous reptile, one of those 6 species, I don't think anybody should have a permit to keep it, possess it, touch it, move it, do whatever the hell they want. Because even the chairman, Jablonski, has said, if it's indigenous to Florida, it lives here, it was here, it'll be here, so be it. All the other states allow people, if you want to keep an eastern diamondback in Georgia, go for it. You know, and all the other states. And what I'm saying is, if it's here and somebody sees it and they want to look at it, they want to move it and not be in violation of law, they're going to do it. You know, and so this is a rule.
You're covered.
This is a rule that I would like to see stricken on these 6 species. It's here, it was already here before we got here, hopefully it'll be here when we're done. So I'd like to see it removed from
Right
any
now,
kind of
I
regulation.
snake without a permit. I'm in violation.
That's
We're all in violation of law, so.
Okay, they got it, okay.
Thank you.
All right. I know, there, she's taking the all right, next. transporting, disaster critical incident plan, we discussed that just a minute ago.
I just want to say I'm glad you guys removed the portion about the lockbox inside of a lockbox. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, we scored one.
Yeah.
It was unintentional.
Oh, wait, we removed that? Hold on. All right.
In terms of transport,
It's gonna be in
Yeah, transport, okay.
do you guys still, based on this, do you still consider the 5-gallon bucket with the locked top security? Okay, because when you read this, it sort of doesn't feel that way.
Yes, because we use it.
No, that's why I know what he carries. I know what he carries.
I don't want to write myself a day.
But when I read this, so it might be, we might, you know, be a little more specific and say, as an example, a 5-gallon bucket with a spare top that's locked or something like that. I'm just trying to.
What about an open weighing fish bag?
What?
1-inch stretch mesh.
All right, let's keep going.
Why don't we have to have pockets? Containers, you know, holding venomous reptiles, so that Steve wants to use a 5-gallon bucket or a box.
Okay, so you're making a suggestion of the word.
Eliminate the word box and put, you know,
Container.
container holding venomous reptiles. You know, where's the word box? Because he's right about the 5-gallon bucket, everybody's got a 5-gallon bucket. Where you going? All right.
Hey, thanks, man.
Have a good one.
Safe travel.
But that was my comment, strike box.
Strike box and put container, okay, thank you. All right,
I would say container of solid construction.
container of solid
Because a
construction.
Ziploc bag is a container.
Escape proof container.
It's purple.
Hey, I'm biodegradable.
What, I'm serious, escape proof container.
Yeah.
Escape proof
Or
container.
not biodegradable escape proof container.
Okay,
Well,
with no,
there'll be
with
some
no
people in the car,
BPA.
there'll be some people in the ground, cardboard box.
All right, we are getting there, guys.
I think
Girls,
that's
let's
it.
do it. Huh?
That's it.
That's it? Oh, that's it, that is it. Whoa, with 5 minutes?
Oh, we forgot something.
Yeah, really? All right, Tony.
I just want to reiterate, because it seemed like last time we had a little bit of mix-up of what we as the TAG are recommending that needs to happen, is that our main issue here is secondary containment biosecurity. I know we got it.
So can I recap and tell you where I think you guys are at? So
Okay.
we're talking to Lieutenant Colonel Smith and Colonel Brown.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Where you guys are at is that personal possession for everybody, as long as they've got the training and qualify and the secondary containment, all right, is in there. So and I know you don't want the tiers, but the tiers play direct into all that continuing education and that stepping stone to professionalize everything and make sure the right people are getting the right snakes. So, you know, that, we kind of have to have the tier to put in that other piece of, tier 3, intro snake, proficient, hours, time, sign off, tier 2, proficient. So that's kind of where the tiers play into all this other piece of continuing education, making sure that somebody that does have a tier 1, if there is no prohibition, it's open to everybody, can get to. And everybody in this room that's in the industry feels comfortable about that, which hopefully will appease the public. So that's kind of what your recommendation is, the whole thing. You know, I get the facilities, we'll talk about the, tier 1s in the house if it's available for, personal use, or even if it's not, you can still have commercial use in the residence. Okay. Because I've been making notes and I got mental notes and everything, but I think that kind of captures where you all are at with.
I think so. Just the one thing to take away and remember from all this is we want required secondary containment, whether or not there are locks on the cages or not, regardless of tier, no matter what, if you have venomous reptiles, they need to be kept in escape-proof room. Because the rule doesn't say it right now. That's what I think everyone here on the tag agreed, and